Hello and welcome in to today's conversation. Our conversation today is expanding upon the preparation for the trine of Mars and the Sun. Mars has gone direct as of recently in the sign of Gemini, as of January 13th. That's when it went direct. And the Sun is just a few degrees below a trine in the sign of Aquarius. Lots of aspects being considered right now. We went through a period where everything was sort of like sitting on top of each other and not in like tangential conjunction in affiliation, but there was just a lot of gravitational pull in the consciousness in that side of the map. Now that we're in a aspect of Mars, sort of leading the conversation this year, and that's probably how I'm going to begin this conversation. Just being in the position of being like 3 signs ahead of like the next planet. I think it's Gemini, and then like Jupiter's in Aries. Let me see. Sorry. Okay. The next planet after Gemini, not Gemini, after Mars is Uranus and Taurus. Okay, so fine. Uranus and Taurus. Going after that is Jupiter in Aries. And Uranus already has provided us with a bunch of air energy for the Taurus council, almost. Like, that's how big of a conversation Uranus is going through, like, experimental periods with and in, especially in the tropical realm of astrology. But with Mars going direct, a lot of the progress that has been discussed by that council is more or less being downloaded into the consciousness of our minds, our souls, the ways that we choose to remember things as spiritual beings and practitioners. Because Mars deals with like self-communication. I know it's not a very communicative planet because there's no air, but it's about what was I gonna say? I had the word on the tip of my tongue. It's a very experimental planet that works on results. So it's like if you're very aware of your behaviors, things that happen around you, you develop an intuition with your own mind and soul and memory. Your ability to remember the world around you in a different way. So that's what I mean when I say self-communicate. There's no social aspect of you transferring this knowledge to other people. There are devotions to yourself to remember things and circumstances of your environment so that you're able to act as a free agent in that to the best of your ability. Now, with the Sun preparing to form a trine, in the sign of Aquarius, a lot of the conscious factors that go into our wish to relay like, our previous experiences, to the point where it's like, I don't like using the word identity because it has such a generous usage that it can mean almost anything in different contexts. So I don't want to give the reading that much of a window of like interpretation. Um, but it's like, oops, we get to share a lot of the contributing factors to our experiences. Um, and sort of be able to define the arena that you're a part of. Not to establish control, even. Like, it gives us the opportunity to become more conscious of why things are going the way they are, and provide an opportunity to, like, exemplify the commitment to remain part of these um, aspects of our lives. Like, it's just a time to show devotion. There's no, like, sign of, like, a collapse yet. There has been, like, no an opportunity for, like, cards to come in, but we're just talking about, like, what that trine is going to mean, especially as a aspect that is happening within the realm of air. I will be considering, like, all of the other aspects in the meantime. I won't be limiting the conversation just because, like, a trine can have, like, a lot of stimulus impact that will kind of, like, lead to, like, disharmony and contempt for things. Whether it's like you've driven yourself socially into, like, or consciously into a decision that forgets the whole experience. Because there's so many things happening in the conversation's favor that, like, needs to be contextualized with the other planets that provide us with reasoning at the current time. Like, we formed the solar system a specific way for a reason and have an idea of whether or not we want to like, exclude like, specific celestial bodies for a reason. Like, I'm not gonna get into other, like galaxies or anything, like other star systems. I'm even going to leave Pluto out of our package. Like, Pluto, like, as a sign, as a planet that has been given, like, astrological meaning and context within the social climate that we are a part of. Like, it isn't a like, the fruits of it are gonna lose in impact and value in the subconscious because it's not a, like, sorry, it's like currency almost, to a fact that we like have people that want to sustain the timeline that Pluto's a planet, but to like remain relevant to the desires of the like scientific community at large. Like we get to mediate our conversation and consciousness according to the way that our society is moving and structuring itself, so that we don't do like we talked about earlier with the trine and extend past and too far from a conversation that we end up excluding ourselves. So let's not do that. Now I'm gonna pull for Mars. So let's see what's come through. I've got a trine action. Now with the sun. Okay, Mars is this way. Sorry, I like to make it look like the actual aspect itself. Okay. Oops. Okay. So we have our trine set up. Now, okay. Our guides have come into the conversation. I've set some cards aside so that we get an overarching like ability to consider the options that are on the table and in the room. So Mars, like currently at 8 degrees in Gemini, we consider the fact that we're downloading things into our conscious ability to gain the familiarity necessary to anticipate our decisions. So the 7 of Coins, like the involvement here is allowing us to connect to an earthly existence and experience. I think there is a sort of resentment for the aspect of this new information we're receiving. It's like there's new context that has affiliated itself with the grandeur of a project or a relationship that Mars wants to illuminate for you as a like part of our subconscious. And the participation is reliant on you. So it's like the participation being reliant on you is allowing you to remain in control of how quickly this information affects you. As we talked about in the Virgo reading, like there's this concession that is part of your free agent ability to provide consent to whether or not you agree with this new aspect of your experience. So the Fool showing us that there is this momentary lapse of judgment that allows you to assess what's going on, but not commit to it, but realize that it's on your horizon. I don't feel like there are people coming to you like with the aggression, like to receive input from you. Our Queen of Wands in reverse, like talking about that aspect of the conversation, allows us to remember like you have like your own duties that you are attuning in, like you're attuning in this environment that's already established for you, and it's this commitment that you are in is where this download is taking place. um there's not a lot of like earth aspects of the transit that's occurring and preparing that we're preparing for. So it's like there just may not be a lot of evidence alluding to the fact that there is a um, conversation to be had by other people. So that's why people might not have come to you. You're just an intuitive person who um, correctly like attunes themselves to the feel of a room. Our guides from um yes, okay. Sorry, I'm seeing just our guides from, oh my gosh, where do they stretch out? I'm looking at like the map, and like it's not the north, but they're having a 3 of Cups moment. Um cuz like the reason why I'm being careful with my language here is because the north is often associated with a directional point that is just like often forgotten to be something that's just to use as a navigational tool to recognize where you are. um and so it's like they're welcoming themselves into the conversation. I'm hearing like they've been watching us for a while. um and like the trine that I'm looking at right now is south, like they're positioned south. um Towards, well, not, well, yeah, okay, it's very complicated because it like depends on the positioning and rotation of the earth, but um this more or less like entry into the conversation, um I don't know why we're having emotions being brought up. I feel like it's just the relative aspect that like there are guides in the conversation right now that are familiar with your past experiences and feelings about them, whether they be contributed to the success that you've had in the past, or steadfast ability to consider the control necessary to keep yourself together. Like Mars going direct after retrograde, like you got the experience to handle the emotion and present yourself in a necessary fashion. Um, I'm not getting like a new book. Like I'm getting just um the congratulatory adjustment to the context of the room that you're reading. Like you're using your intuitive ability to, you're like just stretching your muscles and like predicting specific outcomes, conversations you may have or that other people may have, and like awaiting the moment that you get to ferment the conversation. Like, add a third dimension to it almost. Like when I talk about things that way, it's like you have two people in a room that are just talking to each other. And like this might not be the case for everything going on right now, but you notice the fact that this couple is talking and exchanging words with each other like nobody else is in the room. And it's like it's just sort of like you have an out of body experience, like because you're close to one of these people, or it's forcing you to reconcile with the fact that like you have anticipated having like an exchange like that or whatever. And now it's like the energy of the room changed because you're having to move about it differently because there's a click forming, like a pair that is beginning to bond, and like you just understand that like there's this need to move about the room differently, because it's like I'm not gonna invite just one of these people out. Like we're gonna know that both of these people are probably gonna be seen together, and like separating them is just gonna like cause moments of disharmony or just like more conversation that you're gonna have to witness. The sun, like, with the Knight of Swords, like showing up, talking about what connects us to the earth, like, I feel like, yeah, there's just this. I hate, like, how you feel regret for not being a part of what's happening right now in your environment. This inward reflection to try and assess like what you did wrong or what the other person might have done, and like you consider that an attribute of property of them that you are incapable of exhibiting, like to the point where it's like you hurt yourself, you're filling this cup up like with unwanted feelings and desires that just are affecting you. And like Mars, like rules Aries, but it's exalted like in Scorpio. So these feelings like can get to a point where like they boil, but we got to consider like everyday notions. I think it just affects like your personal morale in this environment that you've committed yourself to. Um, and like almost distracts you from the drive that you had in previously. Um, the Eight of Wands in reversed, like just showing up from our guides, like um, there's just this like narrative that everybody involved in this happening right now is acclaimed, but there's just like aid that's accessible but unnecessary because of our emotions. Um, in Mars, like, yeah, like a remnant of this aspect of Mars is just like being upset with the fact that like our lives are filled with emotional distractions that cause distress and unpredictable behavior. Um, and like, there's just this anticipation to continue with forward movement and like involvement in what you've already committed yourself to. Like the Seven of Coins, like you have financially contributed to this part of the conversation. This isn't like, I know this trine is in air signs, and it's not like, we have nothing here about Sagittarius in the conversation. Like, yeah, Sagittarius, not gonna see any action for a while. Um, at this point of the year, like, and the recent planets involved, like, we haven't had like any time there for a few months at this point. And the reason why I talk about Sagittarius is because it's like, if you have been continually upset by this person to the point where it's distracted you and forced you off of your like axis and had a visual combatants to establish like a disagreement, like those things happen very quickly and you move on almost, and it's just an understanding of the parties involved that you don't get to ignore. It's like this disagree to disagree or agree to disagree kind of thing, or a commitment to a resolution. Um, which I feel is why the the Eight of Wands wants to involve itself as a reversal, recognizing the fact that this aid has been a benefactor in the conversation and download that you've prepared yourself for, that there's no need for any further action. This is a time to just continue to hold yourself with renown and apply yourself to further possibilities, like in the conversation. Now, I feel like there's a lot of success if this disagreement occurred with like a few months ago. Like, the King of Cups showing up just correlates the conversation in a way that provides the narrative that there's opportunity, that this person is remaining impartial to the things that have tread on you in the past. Like, the Temperance, like, Temperance isn't here among the cards that I've laid out, but they've tempered the emotional availability to where they've made a connection with other people clear enough that there's no like aura around you that shows that they are particularly like violent against you or impartial to like your presence, you know. Like, the King of Cups allows us to consider the respect and ability to face new ground and territory without punishing other people for the emotions of their heart. So them exchanging words with other people, being warm with them, and like exchanging in reciprocity, like um has the possibility to upset you. Um Although like Mars is considering that this is self-inflicted harm, and you get to stifle yourself like in the moment. Nobody's coming to your attention. Well, like yeah, nobody's coming to your attention here and reporting any of these facts. Like there's no responsibility involved in like the report here. Um these expectations, like with the Queen of Wands, it's like there's not as much like if you're upset about what's going on, there's no control over the fact that this is alleviated for you. Um and with the King of Cups showing up paired with the Knight of Swords that connects us with this environment, the King of Cups already knows what's off limits. So the sun coming in swiftly in Aquarius, preparing for this trine, like our familiarity with what is off limits remains relevant. Now the star, your Mars is gonna like this. You've got like opportunity here for Mars where like people are considering different outcomes, whether it be the outreach that they're asking for or opportunities that they are looking for in conversation. Whether it be a new job, new hobby, new relationship, new like contextual like part of your like adult responsibilities, like a new bank, like or anything like um so it's like Mars is happy because other options are being considered, like as the star has been presented. um the King of Cups remembers what's off limits because the Knight of Swords is here, and like has presented options as to like what they're willing to defend and embark upon, but also know what limits them in the meantime, and like doesn't produce the outcome that's desired for themselves. And yeah, like what doesn't produce something beneficial for like the conversation. Um so yeah. Mars is just like Mars is looking onward into like new horizons, and like the sun is gonna try in Aquarius to like talk about like how it has um I don't know, what should we consider here? Um like what's important here is this trine doesn't prepare us for retaliation. Like there's no move to aggressively predict like people are forming outcomes against you, but like you're not um like you're not perceptive enough to be able to stop the outcomes that other people desire for themselves. Like, you can't stop them from defending, like, where they'd rather be if you're out of the conversation. So Mars, like, has been having this conversation and dissolvement into, like, the anticipated futures that it desires. And this trine, like, brings up a sort of, like, split in the consciousness that will enlighten us to the disagreements that we've made subconsciously, um, but get to have verbal conversations about, like, in the meantime. Like, this is an action to prepare ourselves for the revelation and have these downloads and remember ourselves. Um, but it's like the earthly experience experiences time in a finite way. Like, timelines. I don't know how to like tangentially like expose this. Like, you literally have like all these decisions that like are agreed upon by um the desire of like the whole. And then when we've all decided like for a particular outcome to happen and we cross that time period, it's like time starts over and we have to make new investments. And like, so Mars is anticipating and sort of like pressuring us into uncharted territory that it wants us to anticipate. Like, subconsciously, we're all doing this. And our trine provides us with an opportunity to resurface some of the things that we'd rather be doing in the meantime that Mars has kind of led us away from. So there's going to be moments where people start to think about like the ways that they can attain like these truths for themselves and access them again. Uh, I don't think like we have like the pain and suffering is something that can remain like to the conscious that we observe like in flashes, just to remember how much we appreciate those people who decided to move on. Like, does that make sense? Like, these flashes that come through characterize us as like beings who won't forget like how much like these people meant to us from the past that have decided amongst themselves to be a part of familiar lifestyles that they would rather be a part of. And nobody's leading. There's no like we're not considering the fact that there's one person calling all the shots, especially after the conversation we just had. Like, Mars has been having this as their guide, like in the subconscious, where they get to plan everything out, make the decisions, and everybody adjusts accordingly. But as an independent agent, like the Queen of Wands loses her power and has to surrender us to the whims of our desire. Um, so like a very frustrating, tangential like experience that the subconscious will have like with itself after this aspect. But it won't be forgotten. Like the sun's gonna transit through like all of the other planets after this moment. Um, I think the best guidance here is to just anticipate the lessons that you learned and exemplify, like the model that the King of Cups provides to know what's off limits to you. Like, understand like the connections that will be broken and like um the relationships that will experience just like evaporation, like we don't want to give people the like yeah, evaporating, like putting people in the predicament to evaporate the heart and emotion that they experience. Like, man, that's torture. That's torture. um but Mars, like, and this is probably why I use this deck, like Mars like has a decent memory. Like the subconscious that we've decided to affiliate with this celestial body is resilient enough to provide us with the necessary resources to attain like the suffering that we relinquished in the past. Like you get to like if you're in a predicament where you have to like forget about like the emotion you felt like in a experience or relationship and it's no longer relevant to you, um that pain, that process, that um association like can be provided to you again in another lifetime, in a future memory, in the 5D. Like it gets to live again because of this aspect, and you will be like um what's the word I'm looking for, you will be replenished, like spiritually and emotionally, in the foundations of this aspect. I think because our choices are so finite in this experience, like it's hard for the aid to come at such an immediate pace, that we expect things to happen so quickly that sometimes we sacrifice like the way we feel for the immediate outcomes that like we have the standard to anticipate. um yeah. um but understand, like, collect time to be able to process the way that you feel about something. Like the King of Cups wants to like show his heart and like beat his chest for you. Like give those moments like precious weight that allows you to remember like how you felt about this story, this relationship, this journey, this memory that like gets to become nostalgic for you. Um, and like because it's something that like sometimes the subconscious like allows just us to remember those things and not create like isolated moments where it's going to distract us in like public settings like and like Mars like gives us the permission to allow us to remember that like almost. The Fool is kind of unpredictable. Like he's a very emotional card. Um so like advice, like train yourself to be able to be perceptive of what triggers that nostalgic memory that you created for yourself, especially at this time because that was kind of my advice here. Like if you see things in the future after this transit that make you remember the time that you allotted to yourself to consider how you felt, and it starts to become distracting, um, be like the eyes that like watch for your soul. Like you you don't have to feel the feeling again. Like you get to your subconscious remembers and your subconscious knows how important it is to you. And like it doesn't matter if you smile just a little bit, like but to the point where it's like you forget like your pattern of breathing and it affects your pattern of behavior. Like that's when it can become something that exhibits like instability in your ability to take care of yourself. um I deal with it. Like it's it's not a hard it's not a um yeah, it's not an easy thing. Like I was about to say it's not like a hard thing to overcome because I think about like how everyone else kind of handles themselves. But um I think like Mars and your past in the subconscious like has prepared for you for your ability to remain diligent in these circumstances, and that can work to your favor. Um, and you get to remain a part of those parts of your life. I hope you will consider these things. I hope you have an amazing short week. This transit was a powerful one. I'm so glad our guides got to come through and talk to us. Um, thank you. Whoops! Again for joining the conversation, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.